It looks like a gift from nature. Bright red, sweet, innocent. The strawberry sits in your grocery cart, in your smoothie, on your dessert plate, and you never think twice about it. You see it in every supermarket, every farmer's market, every breakfast table across America and Europe. It is the symbol of summer, of freshness, of health. It is the fruit that children reach for first, that adults add to their morning routine, that chefs use to make any dish look beautiful. But beneath that ruby surface lies one of the darkest agricultural stories ever told. A story of poison, of deception, of human suffering hidden behind a perfect smile. A story of how a tiny woodland fruit became an industrial monster. This is the history of the strawberry. The most toxic fruit in America. Before we pull back the curtain, let us travel to where it all began. Not in the bright fields of California, but in the quiet forests of ancient Europe. The wild strawberry was tiny. Fragile. No bigger than your fingernail. It grew in the shadows of trees, hidden beneath leaves, almost invisible to anyone who was not looking carefully. The Romans found it growing in the cool damp places of their empire and called it nothing more than a woodland curiosity. They used it for medicine, for decoration, but never as food. It was too small, too delicate, too wild to be worth the effort. A handful of wild strawberries would take an hour to gather and would barely fill a small bowl. For centuries, it remained a secret of the forest, admired by poets and ignored by farmers. Medieval monks grew it in monastery gardens for its supposed healing properties. Royal gardeners planted it in palace grounds as a novelty. But nobody thought to make it a crop. It was simply too insignificant. Then, in the 1700s, everything changed. A French military officer named Amédée François Frisier was sent to South America on a mission for his king. His official job was to study Spanish fortifications along the coast of Chile. He was supposed to count cannons, measure walls, and report back on the strength of colonial defenses. But Frisier had a secret obsession that had nothing to do with war. He was fascinated by plants. He spent his free hours wandering the mountains and coastlines, collecting specimens, sketching leaves, and noting the strange flora of the New World. And in the mountains of Chile, on a rocky hillside overlooking the Pacific Ocean, he found something that would alter the course of history forever. A strawberry. Not the tiny European variety he knew from home. This was a monster. Large, rugged, and aggressive. The Chilean beach strawberry was enormous compared to its European cousin. The fruits were the size of walnuts, tough-skinned, and capable of surviving long journeys. Frisier knew immediately what he had found. He understood that this giant strawberry, if crossed with the sweet European variety, could create something the world had never seen. He smuggled 5 plants back to France, hidden among his military documents, tucked into the pages of his notebooks, protected from salt air and rough seas. Those 5 plants became the ancestors of every strawberry you have ever eaten. But here is what nobody tells you. The Chilean strawberry was a dead end on its own. It produced fruit, yes, but the fruit was bland. Watery. Disappointing. It had size and strength, but it lacked the sweetness that makes a strawberry worth eating. It took a French gardener named Antoine Nicolas Duchesne to unlock the truth that nature had hidden. He crossed the Chilean giant with a North American variety from Virginia, a plant that had been brought to Europe decades earlier but never fully appreciated. The result was a hybrid. A Frankenstein fruit. Larger than the wild berry, sweeter than the Chilean plant, and capable of growing in almost any climate. The modern strawberry was born in a French garden, the product of 2 continents meeting in a single flower. But this creation came with a price that nobody could have predicted. Because the moment humans began to engineer this fruit, they also began to poison it. They began to reshape it into something that served industry instead of nature. The strawberry you buy today is not a berry at all. Let that sink in. Botanically speaking, it is what scientists call an accessory fruit. The red flesh you eat is not the fruit. It is swollen plant tissue, an enlarged receptacle that holds the real fruits on its surface. The actual fruits are the tiny seeds dotting the outside. Each one is a separate dry fruit called an achene. The strawberry is the only fruit that wears its seeds on the outside. Every time you bite into a strawberry, you are eating hundreds of tiny individual fruits, each containing its own seed, each capable of growing a new plant. And that is not the only lie the strawberry tells. The wild strawberry was red, yes, but it was also white, and yellow, and deep purple in some corners of the world. Ancient texts describe white strawberries that tasted like pineapple. Yellow strawberries that glowed like lanterns in the forest. The bright, uniform scarlet of the modern supermarket strawberry is the result of decades of selective breeding designed to catch your eye, not to nourish your body. The color was chosen for its psychological impact. Studies showed that consumers reached more often for deep red fruit. So the breeders gave them what they wanted. They stripped away the subtle variations, the gentle gradients, the natural imperfections that made each wild strawberry unique. They replaced them with a single, aggressive shade of red that screams perfection from across the produce aisle. The flavor was sacrificed for shelf life. The nutrition was traded for size. The complexity was flattened into uniformity. The modern strawberry is a masterpiece of deception. It looks perfect. It tastes like sugar water. And it is drowning in chemicals that you cannot see, cannot smell, and cannot wash away no matter how long you run it under the tap. Which brings us to the fields of California, where 90% of American strawberries are born. The land is flat, the sun is relentless, and the soil is pumped full of poisons before a single seed is planted. Walk through these fields and you will see rows of plastic stretching to the horizon, each one covering ground that has been sterilized by gas. Methyl bromide was the weapon of choice for decades. A gas so toxic it depletes the ozone layer. A gas so dangerous it was banned by international treaty in 1987, the same treaty that saved the ozone layer from total collapse. Yet the strawberry industry received exemption after exemption. Year after year, they argued that no alternative existed. They lobbied politicians, funded research, and convinced regulators that without methyl bromide, the strawberry would disappear from American tables. The fruit on your table was grown in soil sterilized by a chemical weapon. When methyl bromide was finally restricted beyond recovery, the industry simply switched to other poisons with different names but equally devastating effects. Chloropicrin, a chemical first used in World War I as tear gas. 1,3-dichloropropene, a known carcinogen that seeps into groundwater. Metam-sodium, which breaks down into a nerve toxin. These chemicals are injected into the soil under plastic tarps, then released into the air when the tarps are removed. They drift across roads, into schoolyards, into homes where families sleep with their windows open. In the town of Oxnard, California, children play in schoolyards while strawberry fields a few hundred feet away are being fumigated. The air smells sweet and wrong at the same time, a chemical sweetness that clings to the back of the throat. Parents report headaches that last for days. Nosebleeds that come without warning. Breathing problems that doctors cannot explain. The industry calls it safe. The industry-funded studies call it harmless. The industry spends millions on public relations campaigns showing happy families in sunny fields, children laughing among the strawberry plants, farmers proudly holding baskets of perfect fruit. But the hospital records do not lie. The birth defects do not lie. The poison is in the ground, in the air, in the fruit, and in the bodies of the people who produce it. The strawberry workforce is invisible. They arrive before dawn, when the fields are still dark and the chemicals cling to the leaves like morning dew. They work on their knees for 10, 12, 14 hours a day, moving down the rows with practiced speed, their hands moving so fast they blur. Each berry must be perfect. No bruises. No green tips. No imperfections. The pay is by the pound, not by the hour, which means rest is a luxury they cannot afford. A slow picker earns less than minimum wage. A fast picker earns slightly more, but pays for it with their body. The knees give out first. Then the back. Then the hands, swollen and stiff from repetitive motion. Many are undocumented, crossing borders to find work that citizens will not do. Many do not speak English, cannot read the warning labels on the chemical containers, do not understand the safety protocols that are supposed to protect them. Many are too afraid to report the rashes that spread across their arms, the dizziness that hits them at noon, the chemical burns that appear on their skin after a shift in the fields. They know that complaining means losing their job. They know that their status makes them disposable. The industry knows this too. The industry depends on it. The strawberry is a fragile fruit. It bruises easily, rots quickly, demands constant attention and gentle handling. Machines cannot do this work. Only human hands. And human hands are cheapest when they belong to people who have no other choice, who cannot demand better conditions, who will accept whatever the industry offers because the alternative is hunger. The birth defects tell the story that the industry tries to hide with lawyers and press releases. In the agricultural towns of California, rates of birth defects are measurably higher than the national average. Children born with missing limbs, with heart problems that require surgery before their first birthday, with developmental disorders that will shadow them for life. The mothers worked in the strawberry fields. The mothers breathed the air that carried chemical drift from the fumigated soil. The mothers carried the poison in their bodies, and the poison reached the children before they were even born, crossing the placental barrier, rewriting the genetic code, leaving marks that will never fade. The industry denies the connection with carefully worded statements. The industry funds studies that find no link, that blame poverty, that blame genetics, that blame anything except the chemicals soaking into the ground. The industry spends millions on public relations campaigns showing happy families in sunny fields. But the birth defects do not lie. The hospital records do not lie. The poison is in the fruit, and the fruit is on your table. And then there is the water. The strawberry is thirsty in a way that defies reason. It demands more water than almost any other fruit, gulping it down through roots that reach deep into the earth. In California, where drought is not a temporary condition but a permanent reality, strawberry fields consume rivers. Aquifers that took thousands of years to fill are drained in decades. Wells run dry. Small towns lose their water so that strawberries can be grown, picked, packed, and shipped to grocery stores across the country and across the ocean. The farmers drill deeper, chasing the falling water table with longer pipes and more powerful pumps. The water table falls further, dropping by feet each year as agriculture sucks it away. The land sinks as the water beneath it is sucked away, a phenomenon called subsidence, and in some parts of California, the ground has dropped by dozens of feet because of agricultural water use. Roads crack. Buildings tilt. Canals lose their gradient and can no longer carry water. The damage is permanent. Once the ground sinks, it never rises again. The strawberry does not care about any of this. The strawberry must be red, must be large, must be perfect. And perfection requires water. Gallons and gallons of water pumped from the earth to create a fruit that is 92% water itself. The irony is almost unbearable. A fruit made almost entirely of water, grown in a desert, using water stolen from communities that are slowly turning to dust. The water that could have kept a small town alive for a year is used to grow strawberries that will rot in a refrigerator drawer somewhere in a city far away. But the deception does not end in the field. It continues in the laboratory, where scientists in white coats have created something that nature never intended and evolution never imagined. The seedless strawberry does not exist. Every strawberry has seeds. But the industry has found ways to reduce them, to hide them, to breed varieties where the seeds are smaller, less visible, less intrusive to the eating experience. The flavor has been systematically engineered out of the fruit. The modern strawberry was bred for size, color, and shelf life. Taste was an afterthought, a variable to be optimized later if at all. If you have ever bitten into a supermarket strawberry and found it watery, bland, and disappointingly crisp, you have experienced the triumph of industry over nature. The fruit that looks like candy tastes like wet cardboard because flavor molecules were sacrificed for logistics. The molecules that make a strawberry taste like a strawberry are called esters. Wild strawberries have them in abundance, a complex bouquet of flavors that shift and change as the fruit ripens. Modern varieties have been stripped of them in favor of traits that matter more to the supply chain. Shelf life. Transport durability. Uniform appearance. The strawberry on your plate is a product of logistics, not agriculture. It was designed to survive a 3,000-mile journey in a refrigerated truck, to sit under fluorescent lights for 2 weeks without showing a wrinkle, to look perfect long after it has lost its soul. And when the industry could not breed enough flavor back into the fruit, they turned to chemistry. The strawberry flavor in your candy, your yogurt, your cereal, your protein bars, is not strawberry at all. It is a mixture of 50 or more chemicals, synthesized in a factory, that mimics the scent of a fruit that no longer exists in its original form. Ethyl methylphenylglycidate. Methyl cinnamate. Gamma-decalactone. Words that do not appear in nature. The real strawberry has been replaced by its own ghost, a chemical phantom that tastes like memory but contains nothing real. So where does this leave us? The strawberry is not going anywhere. It is too profitable, too beautiful, too deeply embedded in our culture to disappear. It will continue to be grown in poisoned soil, picked by invisible hands, shipped across continents in plastic containers, and sold as a symbol of health and natural beauty. The deception is complete. The fruit that looks most like a heart is the product of a system that has no heart at all. But knowledge is the beginning of change. The next time you hold a strawberry in your hand, remember what it cost. Remember the hands that picked it before dawn, the knees that pressed into poisoned soil, the lungs that breathed chemical drift so that you could have a sweet snack. Remember the water that was stolen from communities that needed it more. Remember the poison that grew it, that protects it, that clings to it even after washing. Remember that perfection is the most dangerous lie of all. Because the reddest fruit often hides the darkest truth. And the sweetest taste can leave the bitterest aftertaste. The strawberry is not just a fruit. It is a mirror. And what it reflects back at us is not pretty.